Hello everyone, hope you're having the most wonderful day today. Welcome to the Film Insight channel. For the 10th installment in the series, we're going to discuss some more businesses featured on Restaurant Impossible and reveal if they're still open. So, sit back, relax, and without further ado, let's get right into the content, guys. Maniaci's Italian Bistro. For this Season 5 episode, Chef Robert Irvine pays a visit to the failing Maniaci's Italian Bistro to try and save it from closure. Being a family-owned restaurant, it was passed down to three brothers named Geoff, John, and Tim after their mother tragically passed. Considering the fact that it was so sudden and that they needed her expertise to run the business, the siblings were set up for disaster. Losing close to $4,000 a month for the past 3 years, the brothers have run out of funds to sink into the business and are expecting to close down very soon. Not knowing what else to do, they call out to the Restaurant Impossible team and Irvine for some help. Upon his arrival to Maniaci's, he's utterly unimpressed with a dirty dining room that has stained ceiling tiles and tons of dust and clutter. Meeting with the owners, they discuss how the restaurant started 18 years ago as a sandwich shop, but expanded to include a dining room and a bar area 9 years ago. Wanting to get an idea as to what the problem was, Irvine attempts to observe the dinner service, which is predictably very horrible. Not only do the customers hate the food, often sending it back, they're also disturbed by the unkempt dining room. What's more, Tim seems to be in denial that there's anything wrong with the restaurant, claiming that there's a conspiracy against him and the restaurant. Due to this, Irvine believes that one of the biggest problems is Tim's delusions and his stubborn way of thinking. Talking to all three of the brothers privately, John seems to blame himself for the problems at the restaurant, but Irvine admits that they're all in part to blame. Following this conversation, they agree to give Geoff leadership responsibility so the staff has someone to take orders from. Before relaunching, the famous chef teaches the kitchen staff how to cook the new dishes he was going to implement. This included simple things like chicken parmesan, but also delicious dishes like branzino with roasted tomatoes and olive oil poached mushrooms. After the dining room and general decor was revamped as well as the menu changed, Maniaci's was ready to relaunch. Thankfully, the customers and staff alike were ecstatic with both the new look and improved food quality. For a moment after Irvine left, the brothers received an amazing surge of customers and were up by $15,000 the first month. Reviews on Yelp and TripAdvisor after the show were generally mixed, some saying the food was sublime and others saying it was alright. However, the restaurant seemed to have closed down in April of 2014, only a year after the episode was taped. Supposedly, the owners weren't able to keep up with the rising costs and were forced to shut things down. How unfortunate. Windseeker Restaurant. Robert Irvine heads to the Windseeker restaurant in Dales, Oregon to try and save it from closing down. Owned by Vita Bingman and her husband Ray, who purchased the restaurant 18 years prior to the taping of this episode, they invested a total of $750,000 into the business. While it may have been successful for the first 6 years, things have started to decline in recent times. To make matters worse, Ray sadly passed while Vita was being treated for breast cancer, which was hard to deal with on top of running a restaurant. Needing some extra help, she asked her former manager Patty to return, but things didn't really get better. Desperate to get the restaurant back on its feet, Vita called out to Chef Irvine for some much needed guidance. When he arrives, he notices that the area surrounding the restaurant is very beautiful, especially with the garden and lake view. Although the inside's a different story since it's a complete mess, so he meets with the owner and general manager to get an idea what problems are at hand. Supposedly, Patty considers herself a very good manager, but due to the restaurant's bad press and reputation, they're unable to get new customers. Wanting to observe the service to see the issues for himself, he notices that the customers hate the food and think the restaurant looks like a thrift shop. Testing some meals for himself, Irvine thinks the food is alright but could drastically improve with some training. Meeting with designer Lynn to talk about how they were going to revamp the design, she expressed how she wanted to turn it into something more scenic. Getting the staff to help with speeding up the transformation process, they all help with removing the tables, chairs, and decorations. Interestingly enough, it's revealed that if any of the staff tries to speak out against Patty's wrongdoings, they wouldn't be put on schedule for the next week. As a result, the employees seem to be really frightened of their boss, which causes a lot of communication issues. The following day, Irvine confronts Patty, asking her to solely focus on being a general manager rather than try to do everything to make up for Vita's lack of work. Before finally relaunching, Irvine attempts to teach the staff how to make the dishes on their new menu, which they all thought were delicious. Upon the restaurant's eventual reopen, the diners seemed to praise the beautiful decor and amazing food. Several months later after the show aired, business seemed to have gone up by $30,000, but sadly, the food costs also went up. At the very least, Patty evolved into a much better general manager, and her ability to run the restaurant had improved significantly. Unfortunately, the restaurant closed down in April of 2015, a bit more than a year after Vita passed away. May she rest in peace. Nanny Goat's Cafe and Feed Bin. For this Restaurant Impossible episode, Robert Irvine visits Goat's Cafe and Feed Bin to rescue it from closure. The owner, Nancy Dupre, has had nothing but success with the other restaurants she owns, though Nanny's goat seems to be the only one that's struggling. Having moved to Kilgore to be with her mother 2 years prior to the taping of this episode, she didn't know what to do, so she opened up the cafe. Like most restaurants on the show, things were great in the beginning, though their customer base suddenly dwindled down. Needing some help, she hired her daughter Jessica to become the restaurant's cook, but Nancy's come to think that she's the reason why things have gone awry. With little time left before the restaurant would have to close for good, Nancy called out to Irvine for some assistance. When he arrives, he meets Nancy and Jessica to discuss the restaurant's problems, and it's revealed that they had to spend $70,000 to redo the kitchen. Asking about the business's finances, the owner doesn't seem to really know, which is already an issue. While observing the service, Irvine notices that the food is being released at a good pace, but most of the customers aren't enjoying their meals. This leads the Restaurant Impossible host to believe that the restaurant went downhill the moment Jessica was brought into the kitchen, since her cooking was very poor. Holding a staff meeting later on, they put the blame on the mother-daughter duo for the lack of customers. They believe that Jessica's food is terrible and that Nancy wrongfully hired her daughter for a job she's not qualified to do. After modifying the menu to make it easier for someone inexperienced like Jessica and redesigning the dining room, the restaurant was finally able to relaunch. Thankfully, both the food and decor were praised by the new customers, and the night went on without any major complications. Fast forward to a while after Irvine left, Nancy decided to sell the business so she could retire, which resulted in Jessica leaving as well. Although it seems like the old staff decided to continue working there, especially since the new owners managed to increase the restaurant's profitability. However, for reasons that have yet to be explained, the restaurant closed down in November of 2013. It seems like there's another Nanny's Goat open in Longview though. Joe Willie's Seafood House. As our final entry, we're going to discuss a restaurant Robert Irvine visited called Joe Willie's Seafood House, which was on the verge of closing down. Upon his arrival, he talks to the owners and Dana White, who had been running the restaurant for over 5 years. His impression of the place is not the greatest, describing it to look run down with peeling floors and ceiling watermarks. The owners also revealed that it cost them $140,000 to purchase the business, and that the main reason the restaurant is failing is because of the location as well as partially them. As usual, the famous chef observes the dinner service and notices that Joe doesn't communicate well with the staff, trying to do everything for himself. On top of that, being the cook, his technique is awful and is completely ruining their fresh produce. Due to the poor communication, the staff hold little respect for the owners, which causes even more issues. After meeting with designer Lynn and discussing the renovation plans, Irvine gets the staff to clear out the restaurant. Later on, Irvine notices that Dana suddenly left the restaurant, and he finds out that she was going to work at another restaurant to make some income. Promising that he was going to make the restaurant successful, Irvine persuaded her into staying. Ready to start making some valuable changes, the famous chef starts by training the kitchen staff on the new dishes he was going to add. This included a shrimp mousse top salmon with a delicious sausage and herb stuffed clam. Finally, he revamped the restaurant as a whole, even adding in a sign along the busy road to attract in customers. Thankfully, the relaunch was successful and both the family and customers were overwhelmed with the changes made. Fast forward to after the show aired, their sales significantly increased, the couple's relationship grew closer, and they managed to stay open to this day. We're glad. Well, that'll be all for today's video here on the channel. I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to drop a massive like down below and comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more content like this and turn on those sweet bell notifications for instant access to our content. Have a good one, guys.